Hello. Today we're going to talk about what genre does and how it does it. By this stage in your education, to answer a question on genre, you cannot simply identify the conventions of a genre. You have to explain how those conventions are used and why they have been used in that way. So today we're going to discuss how these conventions are used and why they have been used in a certain way. So when we're talking about genre, there are four main ways that conventions can be used. The conventions or a text can conform to the conventions of a genre. A text can adapt the conventions of a genre. It can hybridize or blend the conventions of a genre, and it can subvert the conventions of a genre. So if you're thinking about a text which conforms to the conventions of a genre, think of Harry Potter conforming to the conventions of a Bildungsroman genre. For adapt, think of how the film Maleficent adapts the conventions of a fairy tale genre or a Bildungsroman genre to convey something. In hybridize, think about how the film Avatar hybridizes the action, the love genres to convey meaning. And in subvert, think of the Hunger Games, where we have a female protagonist instead of a male protagonist in a Bildungsroman story. What does a genre do? Why has a genre been used in this way? There are a few reasons this is done. The first is that it conveys an idea, conveys a comment on people or society. The second is that it positions an audience. Now, there are two ways to position an audience. One is when the audience has an emotional response, and the other is when an audience has an intellectual response. So an emotional response is from the heart, and to talk about an emotional response, we use adjectives to describe the audience's feelings. So we can use adjectives such as the audience was sad, or the audience empathizes, or the audience is confronted and shocked by something. We cannot say the audience is positioned to think this person is brave, because that's not describing how the audience feels. The other response is an intellectual one. And this is where the audience's values and assumptions are challenged. So, audience's values, attitudes, beliefs, ideologies, and assumptions are challenged. Okay. Now, it's important to know that very often when we have an emotional response to something, it often leads to an intellectual response. So if we are shocked and challenged, if we are shocked and surprised by something, it will very often lead us to reconsider our own values and our attitudes towards something. So let's see how this works in genre. Let's have a look first at how a text conforms to a genre to convey an idea. We can look at Harry Potter again. And in Harry Potter, the Bildungsroman genre conveys that growing up means taking responsibility for ourselves and others. So that's an idea conveyed by a text conforming to a genre. If we look at adapt, Maleficent adapts conventions of the fairy tale genre to allow us to question our attitudes to people whom we judge without knowing. And then further on in the answer, you will talk about which conventions are used and how these conventions are constructed. If we're going to talk about hybridize, let's talk about Avatar again. The film Avatar blends and hybridizes the science fiction, love, and action genres to convey the idea that some things are worth fighting for. So that's again an idea that's conveyed. And let's have a look at how a text is subverted. And let's see how we can have a response to that. The convention of a male hero is subverted in the Bildungsroman text, The Hunger Games, to shock a patriarchal audience and challenge their belief that women can only follow and not lead. Because obviously in The Hunger Games, we see a woman being a leader. So whenever you talk about a genre, it is important that you always talk about how it's used and what it's doing. Don't just identify the conventions, because if you want more marks, this is what you need to do. Good luck.